In this video, we're going to have a look at how we can build a rudimentary Amazon price watcher with Node.js. We'll do this by setting up a task to run on a schedule, fetch the product page from Amazon, pull the current price from the page and compare that against our price target. Then, if the price is below, we will send ourselves an email. So to achieve this, we're going to use a few libraries. Firstly, Axios to fetch the page, and Cheerio to load the HTML to provide us with an API so we can query the page, Nodecron so that we can set up a schedule, and finally we're going to use NodeMailer to send the email. So you will have to have Node installed prior in order to follow along, but that is the only requirement. So let's get into the code. So the first thing we're going to do is open up a terminal and npm init. Next we're going to install our dependencies, so Axios, Cheerio, Nodecron, and NodeMailer. And then we're going to create a new file, index.js. And then we're just going to import all of our dependencies. So Axios, require Axios, Cheerio, Nodecron, and finally NodeMailer. Okay, so we're going to start off by creating a function for fetch price, and that's just going to take two arguments, URL and then the target price. And so first thing that we're going to want to do here is to actually fetch the page from Amazon. So we're going to head over to the Amazon website and just find a product. So I'll just grab the echo dot there, and grab the URL, move back into the code, and then we just want to pass that into our fetch price function so we can use Axios to fetch the page. And then we'll set the target price at the current price. So we'll just make the call to the Amazon website using Axios. So we get the HTML from the response, and then we're just going to console log the HTML output. So if we run that, as you can see, we've successfully retrieved a HTML page. So now we've got the HTML, the next step is to call Cheerio load and pass it our HTML so that we're able to then query the page to get the product price from the page. So open up Chrome, inspect the element, and if we look in developer tools, we've actually got an ID on the containing element. So we'll grab that ID and go back to the code editor, and then what we're able to do is we're able to actually find that element using Cheerios just by passing in the CSS selector of hash and then the ID, and then we can call .text to pull the text out of the element. And then from there, we're just going to create a constant with the price, and then we're just going to pass float, and then we're going to grab the price text, and then we're just going to do a replace on that to remove the currency symbol. So depending on what country you're in, this may be $1 or a euro, so we need to amend that. Then we're going to put an if block in to just check that our target price that we pass in is greater than or equal to the current price on the product page. And then if it is, we can just console.log a success message. So cheap enough, and then we'll have an else block, console.log, and we'll say too expensive. So the current price is $49.99. Yep, that's what we've got set. So we're going to run that, and we should get a console log of cheap enough, which we do. So if we just change that, reduce that by 10, run it again, and then we should get too expensive. So we've got a little slight issue there where Amazon is just blocking us because it was called too often. So you may have to have a little bit of a gap in between the requests that you send. So run again now. And the time has passed, so we get too expensive. Okay, so next I think we'll move on to create the send email function so that we can do something that's a bit more useful than just logging to the console. So we'll create that function, and we'll have a couple of parameters, URL and price. And we're just going to create a basic email, which is just essentially going to have the price, a dash, and the URL, and we'll send that to a test account. And so Node Mailer actually does come with a few tools for doing that. So you can actually create a test account in code, which is quite useful. And then what we're able to do is, when we create the transport here, I'll just show you, there are a few settings that we're going to have to add in, but we're actually able to pass in our test account user credentials from there. So I'm just going to enter in the SMTP host, and you can get these test settings from the Node Mailer website. So these are just the ones from their documentation. So I'll just run through and enter those now. Credential, test account, user. Pass, test account, pass. So I'll provide links to this in the description. Okay, so now we're also going to call the transport.sendMail. And then we're going to actually provide our email data. So we need a from, a to, a subject, then a text and a HTML version of our email. I need backticks so I can interpolate the URL and price. And then we'll just put our from, so I'll just put UI infinity, just a random email. And then 2. So these settings, you would have to configure them yourself. So if you were using Gmail, you'd want to use your Gmail settings. You want to send to you, obviously, your email account. But just for demonstration purposes, I'm going to use the demo accounts. So text, I'm just going to include price, URL to the Amazon product page, and then in the HTML version, I'm just going to wrap those in p tags. And then I'm going to log out a link to the test email page. So once we run this, we should console log out a link that we can follow through, and we'll get a preview of the email that we've just sent. So we'll call send email instead. pass in the URL and the price from the product page. That's everything so far, so let's run that again. And we're missing async. Okay, run again. It'll take a second. Too expensive. We need to update our price. Save that, run that again. And there we have a link to our email page. As you can see, $49.99, and then a link to the product page. So the last step now is we want to actually implement the schedule, so we can run it a fixed period of time over and over again. So for this, we're going to want the price target, the URL, and then also how often we want to actually run this. And so I'll set this to run every 20 seconds. Again, so I'll provide links to the Node cron module in the description. And so all we'll do is call cron.schedule, and then we'll pass in that schedule. And then we'll also call our function to fetch the price, and then pass in the target price and the URL. Just open that to call watch price instead. Run that now. Just need to reverse those arguments. It should be price target first. Schedule, which we've defaulted to every 20 seconds. So run again. So I've set this to every 20 seconds because you don't want to make too many requests to the Amazon website, because they will block you. So you're more likely to be running this probably every minute or every hour. But for demo purposes, I've just set this to 20 seconds. And as you can see, we've had a success there because the watch price was set at $49.99. You could set it to every 5 seconds, but then again, if I run it, we'll probably get a failure. We'll get a success the first time, and then more than likely, we'll get a failure straight after. So that's just something to keep in mind when you're doing this, is that you need to make sure that you're not making too many requests over short periods of time. Obviously, it's a very basic example. You would want to add some error handling there to ensure that if an error does happen, you're handling it gracefully. But that's it. Thanks for watching, and please like, comment, and subscribe.